Today we're going to go ahead and review how to factor like we did before Christmas break. In order to factor, I would suggest having or at least in order to make factoring easier, I would suggest having your factor pairs chart out. If you don't have one or you never had one, I made extra copies, so just make sure you get one. And there are both two sides to this. What I'm going to go ahead and do is first review the three methods we learned. So fast method, lightning bolt, and two term. And then I'm just going to review just a basic problem of each. And then I'm going to review how to factor when there's a greatest common factor. So let's review fast method first. Fast method, let me switch this over, is when your A value is equal to 1. So you'll notice this is an example where the A value is 1. So we can do fast method. In order to do fast method, you first multiply your first number by your last, and you get negative 40 in this case. Then you go to your factor chart. And for this problem, I went ahead and pulled that up. This is what your factor chart would look like for 40. And what you're going to do is you're going to find two numbers on the factor chart that multiply to negative 40 but add up to the 18. So we need them to add up to positive 18. Just as a quick reminder, because it's a negative 40, that means one of the numbers is negative while the other number is positive. So in this case, I would use 2 and 20. And I would make the 2 negative and the 20 positive. And you'll notice those add up to positive 18. So those are your two numbers. It's called fast method because that's basically your answer. So the way you write your answer is you use the variable, in this case W, and then you put one of the two numbers down, so minus 20. Then you do a W, and I put the other number down, plus 20. So I've got W minus 2 and W plus 20, and you are done. Now, lightning bolt is different in that the A value is not equal to 1. So lightning bolt is what I call it. It is sometimes just called grouping method, if you heard that term. So lightning bolt is when A is not 1, which you'll notice for this scenario, we've got something where A is not equal to 1, which is why we're going to use the lightning bolt. So what I'm going to do is just like the previous problem, I'm going to multiply the first number by the last. So 5 times negative 12 is negative 60. And then I'm going to find two numbers, and they need to add up to negative 17. Now, just like the previous problem, because this is a negative, the 60 is negative when I say this. Because the 60 is negative, I need to make sure one of my numbers is positive while the other number is negative. Doesn't matter which order you put those in. So I'm going to go to my chart. I went ahead and pulled it up. And I'm going to find the pair where one of them's positive, one's negative. In this case, I'm going to use this pair, 3 and 20. Now just remember, only one pair works. So 5 and 12 look like they could work, but they would only work if both of them are negative, and you have to have one negative and one positive. So that doesn't work. So I'm going to use negative 20 and positive 3 as my two answers. Now here's the problem. Those are your two answers, but because it's the lightning bolt method, we have to now rewrite this entire expression. So you rewrite it as 5x squared, but instead of negative 17x, you're going to use a plus 3x and a minus 20x. So you're just splitting up the middle term. And then the last term stays negative 12. Just so that doesn't look quite so confusing. Then I call it lightning bolt because we do something that looks almost like a lightning bolt. A little ka-chow right now. And then we go ahead and find greatest common factor. If you recall, the trick to find greatest common factor is look at your chart. So look at 5 and 3 on your chart. And you're going to find the biggest number they both have in common. In this case, it would be a 1. Now they also both have an x in common, so I'm going to take an x out as well. And then we will divide both terms by that. So 5 divided by 1 is 5. And x squared divided by x is x because you're taking one x out of it. 3 divided by 1 is 3. X divided by x means there's no x because I'm taking the only x out. Then I go to the second pair. So I'm going to look at 20 and 12 on my chart, and I'm going to find the biggest number they both have in common. And the chart will tell you that they both have a 4 in common. But because my first number is negative, I'm going to factor out a negative 4. And then we're going to go ahead and divide. So negative 20 divided by negative 4 is positive 5, so I have 5x. Negative 12 divided by negative 4 is positive 3. Now, I forgot to mention this, but we didn't put an x with the 4 because these two terms both didn't have an x. So both of them have to have an x in order to take an x out. Okay, you'll notice these are the same. So now we're finally at the final step. So whatever was the same, you just write down once. And then whatever was on the outside, you factor out, and that's your other expression. So those two expressions are your answers. Okay. So last we have the 2 term. I already showed you my 2 right here. That's okay. So those are the numbers we're going to use from the factor chart. I'll get to that in a second. 2 term is where you have 2 terms. They're perfect squares, so it factors to a minus b and a plus b. So like I said, I already pulled this from the chart, the factor pairs chart. So I went to 25. What you're doing is you're finding a number on that repeats itself for that one. So the 25, the 5 and the 5 repeat themselves. So I know my first term should be 5y. And then for 49, the 7 and the 7 repeat themselves. So for my last term, I should be using a 7, and in this case, a negative 7 since it was negative 49. So one is positive, one is negative. 2-term method is really fast as well. You just write the 5y and then put a plus 7 for one of them. And then the other expression would be 5y minus 7, or the other factor. So one has a plus sign, one has a minus sign, and then you're done.